You know, there's an epidemic of divorce around the world. Why do you think so many people are getting divorces and throwing in the towel?
Well, a part of it is that we're not prepared for marriage. Our culture basically tells people that you're in love, you're going to be happy forever. And they're in love. Most people are in love when they get married, and they're going to be happy forever. But they've done no preparation for marriage. Most people do not go for premarital counseling. They don't read a book on marriage. They just think it's going to all work out. You know, if we spend as much time preparing for marriage as we do preparing for our vocations, maybe we'd do better at marriage. Right now, we do well in our vocations, we don't do well in our marriages. And I think a lot of it is we don't prepare for marriage.
You know, I've heard a lot of people say that they think they married the wrong person, or maybe their spouse changed after they got married. Is it really that the spouse has changed, or is it that that person's perspective has changed?
Well, we do change. We all change. We're changing day after day after day, but that doesn't destroy a marriage. If you know how to work through the changes and you have skills to work through the changes, then you can have a good marriage. And the idea of, you know, I married the wrong person, almost everyone thinks that when they're going through difficulty. I remember I thought it. I thought, you know, I've just married the wrong one. In spite of the fact I prayed and asked God, don't let me marry her if she's not the right one. And I still felt like I married the wrong one. And I kind of blamed God. I said, you know, I asked you, don't let me get into this, you know, and here I'm into it. I think that's a normal thought that people have when things aren't going well in a marriage. I married the wrong one. But the reality is it's simply that we've never learned how to relate to another person in a marriage relationship.
Now, one of the things that stood out to me the most in terms of the things you wish you had known was that being in love is not enough. Why isn't love enough?
The in-love experience has an average lifespan of 2 years.
No.
We come down off the high. I hate to disappoint you, but we come down off the high. Everybody comes down. And that's why it's not enough. And that's why many people are disillusioned. Doesn't matter who you marry, you're going to come down off the high. In fact, if you date long enough, you'll come down off the high before you get married. It doesn't last forever. So consequently, it's not a foundation for marriage. You got to have more than that.
Okay, so what else? So give us a couple other things that you need beyond being in love.
Well, one of the things I say is that we need to know that there are 2 stages of romantic love. The first is the falling in love experience. I'm not against that. It's a wonderful experience. But you've got to move from that to the second stage, which is much more intentional. And that's the chapter where I discuss the 5 love languages. You have to come to understand that what makes you feel loved is not necessarily what makes the other person feel loved. And so you have to learn what their love language is. You have to speak that love language if you're going to keep emotional love alive in the marriage. You don't go back to the euphoria, but you do have emotional love in the relationship if you speak the right language.
We get involved with people and get in relationships and we get married thinking we have so much in common, and then we find out we don't, and then it begins to tear things apart. Why is that?
Well, that's one reason why I encourage couples to take a personality test before you get married and at least learn what the differences are. You know, there are night people and there are morning people. I had visions before I got married of having nice romantic breakfast with my wife. I mean, I could just see it, maybe have devotions together, you know, in the morning. After we got married, I found out that my wife does not do mornings. You know, she doesn't wake up till 10. She gets up, but she doesn't wake up. You know, and there's all kind of personality differences. There's the person that's very, very neat, and the person that just everything is just thrown, you know, and they marry each other, and then they irritate each other. You see, these things can be discovered before you get married, so that you work your way through those things, and they're not shocks to you once you get married.
So if, let's say, Jane and John meet, and they are completely different, are they then doomed? Should they throw in the towel, or is there a chance that they could actually have a successful relationship?
I think they could have a successful relationship. Look, every couple is different. Some more different than others, but every couple is different. You're not going to marry somebody exactly like you, and that's part of the problem. We want the other person to think like we think and behave like we behave. It's not going to happen. You have to learn that we are all unique, we're all made in God's image, but God doesn't make anyone alike. And so we have to learn how to work with those differences.
Of all the 12 things that you wish you had known before you got married, is there one particular one that you find more couples actually struggle with?
Well, I think the whole matter of apologizing. Many people don't know how to apologize. And if they do apologize, they don't understand that there's more than one language of apology. The husband grows up, his mother taught him to say, "I'm sorry." So if he offends his wife, he says, "I'm sorry." He thinks he's apologized. But in her mind, "I'm sorry" is not an apology. What she wants to hear is, "I was wrong, honey. I should not have done that. Will you forgive me?" Never crossed his mind to say I was wrong. It's much easier to say I'm sorry. And so people have different apology languages. And because we're all human, we hurt each other. And we all need to learn to apologize. When we don't know how to apologize, or we assume that my apology is the best way to apologize, we miss each other and we question each other's sincerity, and consequently we have a hard time forgiving. And you can't have a good marriage unless you learn how to forgive. So this is why dating is so important. It's a time to get to know each other. And if a couple will work through these 12 things that I talk about, I think they're going to be pretty prepared for marriage. You know, we learned the hard way. And maybe that's why I'm so empathetic to couples who are thinking about getting married. If I had known the things that I share in this book before I got married, it would have made my journey a lot easier.